Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. 3 months ago, I celebrated 55 years on this planet, feeling confident in my role as a husband and father. I'm Matthew Morrow, a man driven by logic and strategy. My morning routine starts well before sunrise. A brief run through our Virginia neighborhood, a brisk shower, then a protein shake. Precision dominates my work in stock portfolio management. I analyze market trends, measure probabilities, and cut losses when essential. Colleagues often comment on my calm under pressure. My wife, Clarissa, once praised my diligence. She called me unwavering, the type who never bends. I share a 2-story house with Clarissa, complete with a creaking porch swing and a hodgepodge of stubborn shrubs in the yard. I feed our chickens at dawn, inhaling sharp morning air, then step inside for coffee. Photographs fill the hallway walls, images of me in a black tux, Clarissa in white lace. She radiated pure joy on our wedding day, grin dazzling like a carnival spotlight. A golf bag leans near our front door, always within reach for weekend practice. I believe discipline sharpens any craft, and I apply that principle to everything. Our kids, Gideon and Cassie, occupy plenty of mental space. He's 14, she's 10. They bicker over cartoons, sprawl on the sofa with snacks, beg me to drive them places. Toy dinosaurs litter the living room floor. Cassie's sketches of princesses decorate the fridge. Gideon's skateboard ramps clutter the driveway. I often sigh, but a part of me enjoys the bustle. Lately, though, an odd undercurrent gnaws at my peace. Clarissa seems distracted, laughter hollow. I watch her from the corner of my eye, searching for a clue. She took a trip with girlfriends last month. Late Sunday, she walked inside with disheveled hair and swollen eyelids. I caught a whiff of cologne, not mine. When I asked about her weekend, her shrug felt off. Tension wound through my gut like twisted wire. Something about her posture sparked unease. I couldn't name it, but a voice in my head whispered warnings. Tobias has been my closest friend since grade school. He works as a firefighter, fearless, quick to joke, always the center of attention. He's welcomed in our home, shares beers with me on the porch, teases Gideon and Cassie. Clarissa used to chat politely with him, but over the past few months, I've caught her smiling more around him, eyes bright. Perhaps I'm overanalyzing, but a barbecue memory sticks. Clarissa touched Tobias's arm while giggling at some silly pun. That tiny gesture plays in my mind over and over, feeding my suspicion. This morning, an envelope from a medical lab arrived, addressed to Gideon. I requested genetic screening for him because we have a family history of cholesterol complications. Clarissa showed little enthusiasm, but I proceeded. Those results sparked an avalanche. I scanned the paperwork, eyes focusing on paternal markers. The numbers indicated zero match with me. My heart slammed in my chest. I nearly tore the pages in half. Clarissa found me clutching that report. She noticed my trembling hands, asked what happened. I demanded an explanation. She stood there, silent. My words crashed against her like thunder. She muttered confusion, gave no real answers. I refused to wait. I grabbed my keys, marched outside, and forced Gideon into the car. I needed professional confirmation. My mind raced as I drove to the clinic. Gideon glanced at me in the passenger seat, brows knitted. I forced a smile and insisted we verify some medical data. Traffic seemed too slow. My temper seethed. Images flashed behind my eyes. If Gideon wasn't mine, who fathered him? An error in the lab's first report. A genetic anomaly. Still, suspicion burned. Tobias's name hovered in my thoughts. He has the same blood type as Gideon. My teeth locked. I hated the idea but couldn't dismiss it without absolute proof. A board receptionist, scanned my ID, handed me forms to fill out. Gideon grew restless, but I kept the explanation vague. A nurse eventually guided us into a small room, drew blood, labeled vials, and told me they'd reach out with results soon. My pulse wouldn't settle. The sterile corridor, the hum of fluorescent lighting. It all blurred around me. I pictured Clarissa at home, possibly pacing the kitchen, phone in hand. Tobias's grin loomed in my mind, mocking me. 2 days later, I visited the clinic alone. A stern-faced physician handed me final results. 0 paternal match. The room spun. I clenched my jaw, forced composure, then staggered to my car. Outside, I nearly crushed the steering wheel under my grip. Rage, betrayal, heartbreak collided in my chest. I refused to cry in a public parking lot, so I held my breath and roared through clenched teeth. Clarissa had no place to hide from my questions. I confronted her in our bedroom, sunlight flooding through parted curtains. She couldn't speak, only stared at the official papers with wide eyes. I demanded the name of Gideon's father. She spoke a single word, Tobias. My lungs seized. I imagined them together, his hands exploring her soft sighs. My best friend. My partner in crime since childhood. A wave of heat billowed, gripping my head. 2 years of secrets, 2 years of illicit intimacy. Furniture rattled when I slammed a fist on the nightstand. She described their private meetings in low, broken phrases. Hotel rooms when I traveled, stolen moments at his apartment. My stomach lurched, picturing their bodies locked in heated passion. I demanded more details, a dark part of me craving every excruciating truth. She sobbed, admitted he fathered Cassie as well. I roared, voice cracking the silence. The betrayal seared me from the inside out. I stomped outside, ignoring her weeping. My neighbor, Clarence, raised a curious hand in greeting, but I shot him a glare and peeled out of the driveway. My mind cycled between raw fury and shock. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Gideon and Cassie. Both. Tobias had impregnated my wife twice while parading around as my friend. My heart hammered so loud it shook my skull. I called Tobias, voice shaking, told him we needed to talk. He mumbled confusion, but I hissed that I uncovered the truth. We agreed on a meeting place behind an empty convenience store. When I arrived, tension radiated off me like static. He stepped from his car, wearing that broad-shouldered stance I once admired. I marched over, seized his collar, demanded an explanation. He stuttered, apologized, claimed it was a stupid fling gone too far. My fists begged to smash his face, but I pictured Gideon and Cassie. I pictured prison bars if I lost control. His eyes watered, voice cracking as he admitted fathering my kids. I hissed profanities. I threatened him. Then I shoved him away, snarling we were done. I refused to let him exist in my life without consequences. The memory of his arms around Clarissa burned my thoughts. My veins surged with vengeful energy. I stalked off, ignoring his pleas, mind swirling with one plan. I would destroy them both. 2 days later, I stepped into the clinic to see the official printout confirming Gideon's paternity. A sour-faced physician had no comforting words, only facts. Outside, I stared at the sky, adrenaline pounding. Disgust and heartbreak fused in my chest. I gripped the handle of my car door, fighting the urge to rip it off. At home, I cornered Clarissa in our bedroom. Sunlight streamed over her face, highlighting tear-streaked cheeks. She spoke no lies this time. She broke down, confessed every detail of her liaisons with Tobias. She gasped out stories of rough encounters, frantic kisses, hush-hush rendezvous. My mind roiled with images, his lips pressed against hers, his fingers running over her curves. I shouted, demanded clarity on how she chose him over our vows. She insisted it wasn't about replacing me, only a rush of desire. My vision blurred with rage. 2 years of betrayal, hidden under my nose. My best friend. I slapped the nightstand, rattling lamps. She flinched, cowering near the dresser. Her shoulders shook. She spoke of hotel meetings during my business trips, car seats folded down in deserted parking lots, quick sessions fueled by wine. My stomach twisted. I imagined her moaning his name, nails scraping his shoulders. Blood hammered in my ears. I asked for details, perhaps to punish myself. She whispered about urgent moments, whispered promises that eroded every sacred bond we had. I lunged for the dresser in a fit, yanking drawers, hurling clothes across the room. Clarissa begged me to stop, her sobs choking the air. I ignored her, smashing my fist against a mirror frame. Pain shot up my hand. She tried to approach, arms out, tears streaking her face. I aimed a murderous glare at her, seething with images of her entangled beneath Tobias. My heart, once full of devotion, now throbbed with bitterness. I stormed out, slamming the front door so hard windows rattled. The sidewalk felt too narrow for my fury as I stalked to my car. Clarence peered from his porch again, confusion in his eyes, but I refused to acknowledge him. My tires squealed on the asphalt. A primal roar built in my chest, threatening to burst. Gideon and Cassie, not mine by blood. I pounded the steering wheel. My mind demanded retribution. My phone buzzed. Tobias. I picked up, voice shaking with wrath. He sounded nervous, uttering my name in a quavering tone. I hissed, told him I saw the proof. He exhaled in a tremor, apologized, tried to justify himself. My grip on the phone turned white-knuckled. I barked that we needed a meeting, ignoring his stammered protests. I hung up before he could gather his thoughts. My reflection in the windshield mirrored unbridled rage. Behind a row of bushes near an old hardware store, I faced him. He wore his firefighter uniform undone, revealing a sweat-stained t-shirt. Guilt clung to his expression. I seized his collar, fury blazing in my eyes. He stumbled, hands raised. My breathing sounded like an animal's. I demanded answers, demanded to hear him say he fathered my children. He nodded, voice trembling. My fist clenched, longing to strike. I pictured slamming him onto the concrete, pounding him until he begged. Then Gideon's innocent face flashed in my mind, halting my savage urge. He mumbled about a spark between them, a drunken party that led to secret passion. My teeth nearly cracked under pressure. I roared accusations, told him he destroyed my life. Tears welled in his eyes. I cocked my arm, prepared to smash his jaw. But again I saw Gideon and Cassie. My wrath burned hotter. I stepped away. Tobias deflated, shoulders drooping. He pleaded for forgiveness. I spat at the ground near his feet, sneered we were no longer friends. I promised severe consequences. I turned and left him trembling in the alley. Adrenaline buzzed in my veins. Back home, Clarissa hovered in the living room. I told her to leave, pack a bag, vanish for the night. She stared at the floor, watery eyes brimming with regret. I repeated myself, voice devoid of sympathy. She dragged a suitcase out, wheels clicking on the porch. Silence reigned once I locked the door. My attention landed on the picture frames scattered on tables. Gideon's baby photos, Cassie's first birthday party. My jaw tightened, not mine by blood, but I'd always believed I fathered them. The betrayal seared my mind like molten metal. I sat alone, staring at the walls. My phone lit up with calls from Clarissa, texts from Tobias. I ignored them, leaning forward, head in my hands. My gut twisted with images of them locked in sweaty union, his mouth on her neck, her muffled moans. 2 years. Perhaps every time I left for a business conference, they snuck around. Fury mounted, driving me to pace the house. I flung open the closet, spotted her high heels, the one she wore on date nights with me. A memory of her laughter on our anniversary flickered through my mind. Now worthless, night smothered the rooms in darkness. Lamps cast shadows on the walls. I roamed from kitchen to living room, from living room to bedroom, fists clenching. I replayed Clarissa's confessions, stolen lunches with Tobias, flirty texts, a spontaneous romp in his truck. I imagined them sweaty, hearts pounding, while I toiled away at the office. Betrayal battered my senses, yet I resisted the urge to demolish everything. Rage warred with heartbreak, threatening to consume me. Morning arrived, bringing no comfort. I dialed Frank, a legal consultant who once helped me handle property disputes. I recounted the affair, the paternity fiasco. He listened calmly, advised me to stay strategic, gather evidence, prepare for divorce. Anger radiated through my words. Frank told me legal ramifications could get messy. I thought of Gideon and Cassie, how they might handle the truth that Tobias was their biological father. My heart pounded. I refused to let that bastard step in as dad. My phone beeped with Clarissa's messages. I let them go unanswered. I poured coffee, took a single sip, dumped the rest. My appetite vanished. My mind churned with the steps ahead. Divorce, custody, child support issues. Could I face Gideon and Cassie if I banned their mother from the house? I paced the living room, noticing her belongings scattered everywhere. Her perfume on the shelf, her slippers by the couch. The sense of violation grew. She had broken our union with reckless abandon. She had also chosen to hide her children's true father. I needed guidance. I called my brother Wyatt, voiced shaky words. He insisted we meet at a diner. I agreed, desperate for a sounding board. He showed up wearing a flannel shirt, hair disheveled. His eyes zeroed in on my tense posture. I told him everything. The test results, the confrontation, my desire to unleash mayhem on them both. Wyatt listened, fists clenched, knuckles whitening. He cursed Tobias's name, offered to stand by me. I exhaled, some tension easing. He urged me to stay methodical, to plan every move. My initial impulse was violence, but Wyatt reminded me of the law. Assault charges would ruin my life further. Leaving the diner, I recalled the early days of my marriage, when Clarissa and I danced under twinkling lights, Tobias standing nearby as my best man. My phone buzzed again with Clarissa's name, possibly another apology, possibly worthless words. I let the phone vibrate on the passenger seat. A storm brewed inside me, swirling with anger and heartbreak. I had no intention of letting them off easy. My old self, the calm strategist, started to reawaken. I realized brutality alone wouldn't suffice. I needed a more precise revenge. I drove home under a bruised purple sunset, mind spinning with plans. The phone rang. Clarissa. I didn't pick up. She'd left earlier with a suitcase in hand, so the house sat empty, aside from me. Her sister took Gideon and Cassie for the night. Their absence pressed on me, but I craved solitude. Stepping inside, I noticed our family portraits. Gideon's playful grin, Cassie's bright smile. The revelation that I shared no blood with them jabbed my chest. I pictured Cassie in my arms moments after her birth, me blinking away tears of joy. She was my daughter in every sense except genetics. That realization twisted anger into heartbreak. My phone rang again. Tobias. I ignored it. He sent groveling texts. My blood boiled at his nerve. I stopped upstairs to the bedroom. The scent of Clarissa's lotion clung to the air. I yanked the closet door open, rummaging through her dresses. Each piece of fabric reminded me of moments we once shared. Anger roared in my veins. I flung them onto the floor, knocking over a stack of my shirts in the process. My reflection in the mirror revealed a man teetering on the brink, eyes blazing. I spotted an old trunk in the corner. Inside lay snapshots from our dating phase. Clarissa perched on my motorcycle, hair whipped by the wind, her unstoppable grin. Another shot. Me and Tobias cheering at a baseball game, arms slung around each other's shoulders. I studied that photograph, fingertips trembling. I hurtled the trunk aside, pictures scattering across the floor. The memory of Clarissa's body pressed against Tobias haunted me, overshadowing every loyal moment we ever shared. Darkness settled in. Sleep refused to visit. I moved from room to room, flicking lights on and off, mind swirling with vile images. Did they do it on our couch, our bed, even our shower? My breath turned ragged. A savage part of me wanted to tear into them physically, yet another voice inside reminded me the legal route might give me sharper claws. Pain pounded behind my eyes. so I finally collapsed in an armchair, glaring at shadows until dawn. At sunrise, I phoned Frank, the legal consultant. He listened to my raging tone, calmly suggesting I proceed with a divorce, push for custody, keep a tight rein on finances. He mentioned biology complicating paternal rights. Gideon and Cassie recognized me as dad, not Tobias. The courts might require proof that severing ties with their mother or real father served the children's best interest. My heart hammered. I couldn't stomach the idea of Tobias stepping in. Frank advised me to remain patient, to gather documents, to avoid violent confrontations that might sabotage my case. I ended the call, eyes drifting to Clarissa's phone charger. She'd left it behind, the small cord symbolizing her lingering presence. Her perfume bottles cluttered the bathroom counter. Her fuzzy slippers rested near the sofa. A wave of bitterness consumed me. She had turned our home into a staging ground for her secret transgressions. My phone beeped. Another text from Tobias, pleading to talk. I let out a harsh laugh, ignoring him. I reached out to my brother Wyatt. He answered, voice groggy. When he realized my distress, he insisted on meeting at a diner. I agreed. An hour later, he arrived in a rumpled flannel, eyes scanning my face with concern. Over steaming mugs of coffee, I recounted every detail. The paternity fiasco, the broken trust, the fury swirling in my gut. Wyatt clenched his jaw, fists balling on the table. He offered no excuses for Clarissa, no forgiveness for Tobias. Instead, he pounded a fist on the Formica tabletop and said, "You have every right to rage, but remember Gideon and Cassie. Don't punish them in your war." I sipped lukewarm coffee, bitterness coating my tongue. I admitted I wanted to unleash total destruction on Tobias. Maybe Clarissa too. Wyatt nodded slowly, urging caution. "They're not worth prison," he muttered. "Aim for a calculated approach. Gather evidence. Make them pay legally." The idea resonated. I possessed a talent for strategy. My usual calm had evaporated in the face of betrayal, but I could regain it. After finishing my coffee, I stepped outside the diner, breathing in crisp morning air. The memory of Tobias standing as my best man gnawed at me. Clarissa once giggled during our first dance. Now those images left a rancid taste in my mouth. My phone buzzed again with her number. I ignored it, unlocking my car door. I recognized a shift in my psyche. No longer a stunned victim. I had steeled myself, ready to strike. I returned home and discovered a note from Clarissa shoved through the mail slot. She begged for conversation, insisted she wanted to explain. I ripped the paper in half, dropping the pieces on the entry table. Enough words had already been exchanged. Her presence triggered only fury. That night, the house felt eerie without Gideon or Cassie. I grieved their absence, but knew they were safer away from this turmoil. I rummaged through every drawer, collecting financial records, mortgage statements, birth certificates, and any evidence that might help my case. My plan formed. I would corner them through legal channels, remove Tobias's paternal claims, and ensure Clarissa paid for her deceptions. I dialed Frank again, requesting immediate action. Clarissa called me. I finally picked up, voice ice cold. She pleaded for a meeting, claiming she wanted to salvage something, if only for the kids. I told her to meet me at our dining table in the morning. She agreed, voice trembling with relief. She arrived wearing sweatpants, hair in a messy bun, eyes puffy from crying. I paced before her, silent for a moment. My voice dripped with venom as I told her Gideon and Cassie were mine in spirit, but she destroyed the bedrock of our marriage. She stuttered out apologies, watery eyes darting across the walls. My anger didn't waver. "I want full control of finances, custody terms. You can visit the kids, but you forfeited your right to hold equal power." Clarissa swallowed hard, nodded. She offered to leave the house for a while, maybe live at her sister's place. I waved her off, words clipped. Memories of her moaning under Tobias's body played in my head, fueling my resentment. She hurried upstairs to pack more clothes, tears dripping. I glared at the family portraits as she slipped out. The door shut, leaving me with an echoing hush. Alone again, I sifted through piles of paperwork. I discovered credit card statements showing transactions at hotels near Tobias's apartment. I found restaurant receipts for dinners I never shared with her. My chest burned. Anger rose in waves, but I remembered Wyatt's caution. If I succumbed to blind rage, I'd risk losing custody battles in court. My children mattered more than personal vengeance. However, that didn't mean I would spare Tobias from ruin. 3 days later, Clarissa and I met in a mediator's office to hammer out preliminary separation terms. She arrived first, eyes rimmed with red. I stepped in, arms crossed, explaining the paternity results and my demands. She stammered about therapy, insisted she cared for me. My lip curled in disgust. The mediator glanced between us, urging calm discussion. My voice stayed rigid. I'm filing for divorce. I want custody. You can keep partial visitation if Gideon and Cassie wish. Clarissa's lawyer warned me about pushback in court, especially since Tobias might assert paternal rights. I smirked, shaking my head. I already had a plan to make him relinquish every claim. Leaving the mediator's office, I felt hollow but resolute. The old trunk of memories had no hold on me now. My life pivoted in a new direction, fueled by rage and cunning. The final confrontation with Tobias loomed, a chance to shred the last shred of dignity he possessed. He would taste the same humiliation he inflicted on me. I summoned Clarissa again, instructing her to sit at our dining table. She wore baggy clothes, eyes swollen. I circled around, voice cutting the air. Gideon and Cassie see me as dad. You turned our marriage into a lie. We cannot reverse this. Sign these documents to formalize our separation. I'm taking the kids. Her fingers gripped the table edge. She pleaded for a chance to redeem herself, but I snorted, ignoring the shaky timbre in her voice. A part of me wanted to slam my fist against the wooden surface, but I forced my anger under control. I demanded a list of assets, demanded clarity on her finances. She swallowed, voice small. She offered to move out for good. I consented with zero hesitation. My mind flickered to images of her pressed under Tobias's brute force. My shoulders tensed, words slicing the atmosphere. Gather your things. Sign the papers. Leave. She froze, tears slipping down her cheeks, perhaps hoping for a sliver of mercy. I offered none. She trudged upstairs to fill her suitcase. My phone lit up with a text from Tobias, requesting a meeting on neutral ground. I set a time and place, behind an auto repair shop after closing hours. That evening, I arrived early, the sky dim and the street mostly vacant. When his truck pulled up, my pulse thumped in my ears. He climbed out, wearing jeans and a worn t-shirt, anxiety carved into his features. I approached, fists clenched. He started to apologize. I let him rattle on about mistakes, misguided passion, unstoppable chemistry. My jaw clenched so hard it threatened to fracture. He finished, voice raw. I pinned him with a stare and unveiled my ultimatum. You will surrender parental rights. You owe me compensation, financial support for Gideon and Cassie. I raised them. You invaded my marriage. You'll relinquish every claim you have, or I'll tear you apart publicly. Tobias swallowed, face glistening with sweat. He nodded, voice trembling as he promised compliance. A wave of savage triumph coursed through me. I wanted to beat him to a pulp, but a more lethal plan brewed. Reputation, career, finances. I would annihilate him meticulously. He mumbled details about his firefighter pension, about saving for a bigger home. I demanded half. He gazed at me in horror. You can't do that, he croaked. I leaned in, sneering. Watch me. His eyes darted around, perhaps seeking an escape. I reminded him of the evidence in my possession. Phone records, text messages, explicit photos. If he refused, I'd expose everything. He trembled, tears gathering at the corners of his eyes, and agreed. I returned to a silent house. Clarissa's belongings had vanished. Gideon and Cassie were still at her sister's. I spent hours on calls with my attorney, pushing for swift action on the separation and official custody. The emptiness in each room felt suffocating, but my anger roared louder. I couldn't rest. Visions of Gideon's grin twisted my resolve. I had to protect him and Cassie from confusion. I refused to watch Tobias wiggle into a father role. My bitterness toward Clarissa festered. 2 children, fathered by my so-called best friend. 3 days later, we sat in a neutral space again, a mediator's office with sterile beige walls. Clarissa arrived looking exhausted. The mediator prompted us to review the terms. Clarissa tried one last time to ask for therapy or a second chance. I slid the DNA results forward, stated my decision. Divorce, near complete custody for me, minimal visitation for her. Clarissa's lawyer mentioned potential resistance in court. I shrugged, informing them Tobias had already agreed to relinquish paternal rights. Clarissa's face went pale. She realized I'd forced him to bow. The mediator tried to maintain calm, but I cut her off. Sign, or I'll make your affair headlines. Clarissa nodded, tears shimmering. She scribbled her name on the forms. My pen scratched across the pages, finalizing a split I once thought impossible. Silence hovered. The mediator collected the documents. We rose, a heavy hush in the air. Clarissa moved near me, voice low. I'm sorry, Matthew. I never wanted permanent harm. I stared past her, stepping away without a word. Outside, cold air hit my face. The ring on my finger weighed 1,000 pounds. I slid it off, gripping the metal until my hand hurt. A flash of memory cut through me. Clarissa in her wedding dress, vow after vow. Tobias standing behind me in a tux, that easy grin on his face. Rage stoked my lungs, but I forced a steady breath. The peak of my anguish had arrived. I faced a choice: sink deeper or unleash the final blow on Tobias. I gathered momentum. I'd humiliated him once in front of his friends, but that wasn't enough. I arranged every scrap of evidence, screenshots, text logs, photos, even an excerpt from Clarissa's journal. My final step would be an anonymous tip to his fire station, revealing the immoral entanglement he orchestrated. I wanted him disgraced, forced out of his heroic uniform, a fitting punishment for a friend who betrayed me so deeply. With the divorce official, I packed some clothes, tossed them in a duffel bag, and glanced at my reflection. My eyes burned, face etched with lines of fury. I remembered Clarissa's first wink across a cafe table, the glint in her eye when she said she adored my drive. Gone. Everything undone. I marched outside, slid into my car, and focused on the last stage of revenge. Tobias would pay beyond finances. He'd suffer social ruin. A week passed. I monitored Tobias's routine, took note of his shifts at the fire station. On a Friday night, I heard through mutual acquaintances that he planned to meet some buddies at a sports bar. Perfect. I arrived early, slipping into a corner booth, sipping a soda. My phone contained every incriminating piece of data I'd collected. I reviewed them, heart drumming with anticipation. He strode in wearing casual clothes, greeted his friends with slaps on the shoulder. My gut twisted at the sight of his carefree grin. I rose, crossing the room until I stood inches from his group. He spotted me, face going pale. I dropped a pile of printed screenshots on their table. Messages, explicit pictures, undisputable proof of his affair with Clarissa. Shock rippled through the crowd of onlookers. I glowered. Meet your buddy, the so-called hero. A lying homewrecker who fathered my children behind my back. His friends gawked, flipping through the papers. Eyes widened in disgust. Tobias choked on a half-formed apology. I refused his attempts to pull me aside. The bartender shouted for calm. I slapped his hand away when he tried to grab the photos. Coward, I snarled, voice reverberating across the bar. You pretended to be my friend while sneaking around with my wife. You destroyed my marriage. Murmurs swelled among the patrons, condemnation palpable. Tobias shrank, tears threatening to spill. I turned on my heel and walked out, pulse thundering. Outside, I gulped brisk air, heart hammering. My chest burned with raw adrenaline, mind racing. Triumph tingled in my veins. That confrontation quenched part of my thirst for revenge, but I wanted to take him down fully. My phone buzzed. Clarissa again, begging for civility. I silenced it, stepping off the curb to my car. He could no longer hide from judgment, no longer slip through life with a squeaky clean image. During the next week, I worked with my attorney to finalize child custody. Tobias relinquished paternal rights, exactly as demanded. Clarissa sent streams of messages, proposing open visitation or joint arrangements. I refused. I insisted on exclusive guardianship, with minimal visitation granted if Gideon and Cassie so desired. Clarissa saw the futility of fighting me. Any courtroom battle risked shining a spotlight on her affair. Anger fueled my resolve, unstoppable as a freight train. Document by document, I cemented my advantage. Sitting in a drab courtroom, I observed Clarissa sign papers forfeiting spousal support. Her hands shook, tears dripping. The judge examined the evidence of paternity and betrayal, eyebrows raised. Tobias didn't show. The final gavel tap concluded my marriage. Outside, Clarissa approached, voice hushed. I never wanted it to end in ruins. I stared past her, ignoring the heartbreak in her eyes. She slid away, footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Stepping into daylight, I inhaled an odd sense of relief. Yes, my world lay in shards, but I could rebuild. I slid the wedding ring into my pocket, recalling Clarissa's grin at the altar, Tobias standing behind me. A single tear escaped, brimming with sorrow and fury. I clenched my fists, letting the tear dry. That life was gone. I dialed Wyatt's number. His calm voice reminded me I wasn't alone. He offered me a couch at his place if the emptiness felt unbearable. I murmured thanks, footsteps echoing on the courthouse steps. A day later, I took Gideon and Cassie out for pizza. They sensed tension, pressing me for answers. I explained carefully. I would remain their father always, no matter what. Cassie blinked, tears shimmering. Gideon asked why Tobias acted in such a hurtful way. My grip on the chair tightened, but I kept a calm tone, assuring them it wasn't their fault. They relaxed a bit, leaning on my shoulders. The pizza's aroma created a small island of comfort in an ocean of upheaval. 3 weeks later, I delivered the final strike against Tobias. I mailed an envelope brimming with evidence to his fire station, messages, timelines, statements from Clarissa's journal. I heard rumors he faced disciplinary measures for his misconduct, that he resigned soon after, humiliated and financially wrecked. Good. Poetic justice served. I pictured him alone, wondering how he landed in this pit. He deserved every ounce of torment. Meanwhile, I prepared to leave the old house. I packed my suitcase for a new beginning. Staring at the hallway mirror, I noticed the man gazing at me, a survivor with savage determination in his eyes. I had lost illusions about marriage, discovered a brutal betrayal from someone I once called brother. Yet I stood upright, unbroken. Gideon and Cassie remained by my side, forging a future that reflected my values, my protection, my unwavering strength. A final exhale passed my lips as I left the house. Stepping onto the porch, I let the door click shut behind me, past colliding with present in a brief moment of recognition. No more illusions, no more naive trust. I had chosen a path of strategic revenge, ensuring those who wronged me paid. In the end, I emerged with pride scared but not destroyed. The story reached its close. Clarissa drifted out of my life, filled with regret. Tobias, crushed by shame, lost his heroic standing. My children, anchored by my resolve, clung to me as their father, biology be damned. A new chapter beckoned. I stowed my suitcase in the car, turned the key, and pressed the accelerator. My heart thudded in my chest, but a fierce spirit guided me forward. I had survived the storm and taken my pound of flesh. No second thoughts. I drove away, Eyes on the horizon, mind steeled with clarity. Betrayal tested me, ripped apart my marriage, and nearly shattered my faith and loyalty. But I rose, stubborn and fearless. From that day on, I vowed to protect my family on my terms, trusting nobody blindly again. A savage lesson, but one that forged my will into iron. The end.